All right, live. Welcome y'all to the Reinvent Yourself series. This is the personal freedom edition. So it's personal freedom, from what? From your past, or from, limiting beliefs, or from behaviors maybe that don't align to your greatness, or freedom to, freedom to fully, excuse me, freedom to fully express yourself. Funny that my throat got choked up as I was saying, express yourself. Freedom to be honest, right? And so whatever you're here to be free from or free to do, that's what we're here to create with you. And so I'm psyched for today's guest, freaking rock star, Rachel Fiore. I'm just going to read this, how you've introduced yourself, and then I'll put it right back to you to introduce yourself. But Rachel is a spiritual teacher of the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness and the CEO of Masters of Self University, and also #1 international bestseller of the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness. And so, Rachel, freaking excited to have this conversation with you. Thank you for being here. And why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself, and you can share with a little bit about your story and how that led to you being and doing what you're doing and being today, and like what exactly that is.
Thank you so much for having me, Shawn. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you. And hello to everybody listening. Thank you for joining us. So a little bit about me, if you don't know who I am. Boy, I could spend a week telling you everything about what led me to create and offer the teachings of Oneness Consciousness, to be a spiritual teacher of Oneness Consciousness, and specifically the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness. I will start here that I was, after my master's degree, when I became an occupational therapist, I specialized in mental, emotional, and behavioral health. So I became a specialist in that field, and went on in my working with patients to become an actual expert in the field of mental, emotional, behavioral health. And what I found in working in Western healthcare and Western medicine, that we worked in a sick system. You needed to be sick. You needed to be codependent. You needed to be powerlessness. You needed to know that you could never really, truly heal unless certain methods were used. And then it was only maybe. And that lacked integrity. And the way of integrity is one of the universal ways of oneness out of 20. So that system was not okay with me. It was not okay with my soul. But I learned an incredible amount of what does not actually transform and heal people. And a lot of people out there use a lot of tools, a lot of coping mechanisms that doesn't actually transform and give you the freedom that you're seeking. It doesn't transform. So we have to learn a new way, a way to, I call it, of becoming. We have to become step by step what we are seeking. We always think things are we seek outside of us, that it's outside of me that will help heal and change. And it isn't. This is a becoming. And so coupled with my experience and actually becoming an expert in that field, but also being born here on this planet to be a spiritual teacher in this lifetime, to bring oneness consciousness and the 20 universal ways of oneness, both of that spiritual journey and my career and my education together, integrated together, to what led me to receive the specific teachings of the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness. And that is what I teach and offer to humanity, and our coaching programs and all the things that I do. That's what I offer now.
It's brilliant. I was listening to you talk about our system, our Western system. And it's just hit differently when you said it today, when you said that you have to be codependent to even exist inside that system.
Yes.
And you're talking, we're talking about becoming, like who you're becoming, and you get to become what you're seeking. And it's like, yes, love this. And it's like in that system, that old system, I don't want to spend that much time talking about the old system, but we can talk about it too. You've already like sort of surrendered your rights as a creator in a way, just by fitting into the system, just by acknowledging that the system exists, because you now have to be codependent with the system. Like, okay, I'm sick. Okay, then I have to depend on my doctor to fix me. And it's that codependency that has you already becoming powerless. It's already the state has all been created inside that system.
That's exactly it. And I was literally told Stop healing people, Rachel. Sick people make us money. I was literally told that. And I wish to God I could say only one time and one physician or one person, one director of blah, blah, blah ever told me that. It was not just one person that said that to me. And, you know, I cannot absolutely, I was like, okay, I'm here to learn. My soul is here to learn what a sick system is all about, to keep people sick and powerless and weak and looking at only pharmaceuticals and all this garbage that does nothing but continue to poison their body, instead of connecting on an energetic level to their internal divine power and becoming powerful enough to heal themselves, elevate themselves, and emotionally, mentally free themselves from what they're suffering from, because that is achievable and it's doable. You have to be willing. You have to be devoted. You have to put in the effort and the hard work. This isn't passive. Oh, somebody will touch you and everything you've ever suffered from will be gone. That's immature, childish. That is the old spiritual matrix that
Rachel, I'm out. If you're not going to touch me and just like make it all go away, I can't even have this conversation.
Right? It's like learning how to actually become powerful myself. And then the teachings, the guidance to get there. Yes, there are other people and professionals and, you know, beautiful, amazing, powerful ones who can help you get there. But it doesn't mean you simultaneously are not learning and becoming the work, the happiness, the freedom that you're seeking. You have to become that yourself to truly experience what that feels like on an energetic level. And then you live your life free from suffering, never free from pain. We're human, we're going to feel pain, but you are now powerful enough to move through the painful, challenging times of life that life throws at you with grace, with power, with the way of surrender, one of the ways of oneness, with the way of patience, with the way of responsibility, all ways of oneness. You're now living your life as a divine being, and living as a divine being never means you're no longer human. And that's where people get it wrong. They think if I become spiritual and awakened, I'm no longer human. I don't experience human things. I don't fall from grace. I don't make mistakes. You're gonna fuck up.
Yeah.
We're human. And it is okay, because that falling down and smashing our face on the ground sometimes is the best thing for us. Use it to elevate higher.
I love that. I fuck it up every day.
Yeah. Right?
Every day. It's every day. It's part of it.
Yeah, it is. And it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Exactly. Tell me, there's so much you said I want to dive into. And also I'm curious too, from, you know, I love how connected you are and present you are to that, that time in your life when you were occupational therapist, right? And you were in that system, learning what doesn't work. Yep. What was the journey like? I know my audience, I have a lot of people in that system that are in the healing, like physical therapy or some aspect, right? Yeah. Even acupuncture, whatever. Acupuncture, no, but physical therapy or doctors.
Yep.
What was the moment for you that you started to realize that, okay, there's something misaligned with this? And then can you walk us through your journey of like letting that seed grow and then eventually leaving that system?
So yeah, what a challenge to summarize that. It happened almost right away. It happened almost immediately. As soon as I, you know, graduated from my master's, and I knew I was going to go on to specialize. I knew, I was still going to educate, because it's important to share that one of my top priorities is to educate myself to a greater level. Always. Why? Number one, I recognize I'm an infinite being. There's no ending to that. So I'm acknowledging myself as a divine infinite being when I do that. Number two, my human self, because we have a soul self and a human self, right? Our soul is having a human experience, and these are supposed to be integrated. Living a divine life means they are both integrated. So as an infinite being, I continue to elevate always. I learn, I become more powerful always. That's my infinite soul self. Having this human experience, the more educated, the more specialized, the more I can elevate in my wisdom, the way of wisdom, one of the ways of oneness, not knowledge. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is just a bunch of shit you put in your mind, and it does not mean you're awakened or you have wisdom just because you know a lot of shit and can regurgitate it. So in my journey as a professional, as a therapist, my patients deserve for me to learn and be the best I possibly can be. And when I am the best, I can then go even higher. If I truly specialize in something, I can go on and specialize in addition to something else along with. And the reason why a divine being having a human experience, that's the way that they live. It's not running programs of I'm not good enough, perfectionism. That's a load of crap. Get rid of that garbage. There's no such thing as being perfect. It's what my patients deserve from me as a therapist. Now as a coach, I left that field. So I am now quote unquote a coach. I started my own corporation. I left that industry to start an industry of self-empowerment, of energetic, connection to your divine power, learning the science of energetics so you can actually learn how to alchemize. I saw right away, and I was so excited to be a therapist after all the hard work, after, what it took to get there and all the education. And I saw immediately that patients were not empowered. And when I would empower them and give them a different perspective and encourage them to connect to an internal power that they have, and let's move through this, from a higher perspective, and then do physical rehab if that's what they're there to do. The mental rehabilitation, the emotional rehabilitation was like, you just want them to be codependent and take meds. Like that doesn't even that's not going to heal their depression. That doesn't heal anxiety. Let's actually heal the anxiety. And I got backlash through my entire career for all of that. And I realized you actually want these people to be sick. Like we should be starting programs where it's a proactive, let's be healthy, let's be powerful, let's learn how to take care of ourselves and prevent all of these conditions. Let's actually heal from depression and PTSD and anxiety and all the veterans I had as patients. My God. And over again, it was just like, what are you doing? No, we're not going to start that program that you've created for our hospital because sick people make us money. Then nobody would show up, they'd all be healed. Yeah, that's kind of the point. And then you could turn the system upside down and create a well system that promotes how to maintain being as healthy as possible. And you'll quote unquote make money off of that. You should make money off of that. That's what we should be contributing to with our financial investments, right? So that's why over time I realized, okay, I'm here to learn. My soul is here to learn all the garbage, all the trash that we do in this sick system. And then I'm supposed to come up with something much better. And that's what I did. That's what I did.
Heck yeah, you did, man. So I'm just curious too, because I see this with my clients and like prospective clients when we get on the phone. When you realize like what the system was, did you have like any sort of reaction to that at all? Like a period of time where you were like frustrated or angry or like any sort of that you had to move? Can you just kind of talk through like that, how you like integrated and like processed and moved through that emotional state and then like ultimately elevated?
It made me sick.
Yeah.
It made me sick. Honestly, it made me, and that isn't judging. This doesn't come from judgment. It made me sick when I realized this is what we're doing to people. And what was really hard for me emotionally was I was a part of that system. And that was really hard for me because that's not what I am. That isn't who I am. That is not a reflection of my soul self or my human self. And yet here I was a part of that system. And that was really hard for me. So how to alchemize that, to really process that and elevate out of it was to do what I teach in all of my coaching programs at Masters of Self University. This is what I certify and train coaches in all over the world, not just to alchemize and heal depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, you name it. It's literally learning step by step to work with the energies inside of your body to completely transform them. Emotions are nothing but energy. We're running mental programs, emotional programs. They get triggered and activated all the time. To discover what those programs are, to see them, to own them, to not make excuses for them or justify them, and to not dismiss them, suppress them, ignore them. That is the first universal way of oneness, the way of responsibility. To see them, identify them, increase my level of self-awareness to see, well, what programs am I running? What pain do I have? What is this triggering or activating inside of me? And to have zero excuse for leaving it there. Just because the system is horrible and corrupt and awful, it's a system of poison, okay, I could be angry and stay in that state, or I can elevate and become powerful enough to detach from that system. I can become the way of surrender. That means I'm now in flow, and you can flow out of the system. Surrender doesn't mean I give up. The way of surrender means I'm actually in flow with the universe, so I can flow out of what I don't like here, of what I'm experiencing. That's the power of the ways of oneness. And I literally did all of the things that I teach other people, and that I coach and teach them how to do for themselves, step by step. And it was hard, and it was painful. It was not easy. It's not like you can just say, oh, I don't like this, I'm going to go start my own corporation and have all the money and all the things to do that. It took a long time to get to the place where I could actually 100% break out of that system. But man, when I did, I just did not allow that system to destroy me or poison me emotionally, mentally, while I was in it. And I learned how to do that with what I teach and offer now, with all of our coaching programs. So you have to learn to walk your talk. You can't just teach what you haven't done and achieved yourself. You're not a teacher when you do that. You're a fraud, right? I had to become what I was learning before I ever taught it. That's the way of responsibility and the way of integrity.
I love that. The becoming is everything. That was like, this is the greatest example I see with that playing out, or maybe the most clear example that plays out over and over and over, is relationships.
Oh yeah.
And, you take a single person. I did this myself, in and out of relationships. There was like a timer that started, that was like a 2-year timer for me in relationships. And they're like over and over, a cycle, and misaligned. And, I see this with clients. I see this with prospective clients where they make a list, these are the characteristics of the perfect man that I want to have in my life. And it's like, then they stop there. And it's like, I think that's a cool thing to do, is like, it's creating a vision of what you want. And then, but like where I see people stop, and where I had my breakthrough with relationship with attracting my partner, was then I finally like dawned on me, it was like, well, who's that woman? Who's she looking for?
Exactly.
And then it was
there
like,
you go.
oh wait. And then I got clear on that. And it was like, am I being that guy?
Exactly.
And it was like, nope, I'm not being that guy. So how am I going to hold that woman when she pops in? And she's not going to pop in, because I'm not even being the type of guy that she would need me to be. And like, that was the work. It's just an example of what, I hear you saying. That's where one of the clear ways to attach it to is like, you get to become it, not just make it a demand, but you got to become what you're, like you're saying, become what you're seeking.
Yes, exactly. Precisely it. It's a becoming, to become the most magnificent version of you. We have to let go of this. I want. What does that sound like? This part of the work that I teach is, people learn how to ask, how old am I right now? How old am I right now? And that has nothing to do with your chronological age. You could be 60 years old and you're showing up as an 8-year-old child. How old am I right now? What aspect of me is showing up right now? What immature aspect that can't handle anything or doesn't feel capable, or I just want, this is what I want. Well, guess what? When we're very young children, they are narcissistic little fuckers. The whole universe, they are used to from infanthood, the whole universe revolves around them. Like, that's a normal, healthy part of development. They are meant to be narcissistic. It's how they get their needs met, right? It's not a negative thing when they're infants, but when they start to get into toddlerhood and they're starting to develop cognitively, emotionally, they're starting to develop and step into a little bit of autonomy, but they also are supposed to be receiving the parenting that encourages them to not just see the world from me, myself, and I am the only one exists. I'm the center of the universe. You're not the center of this planet. Newsflash, there's 8 billion of us now.
Yeah.
You think you're the most important one? It's ridiculous, right? So we don't mature out of those programs. And how do we know we didn't mature out of those programs? We learn in our society, well, just what do you want? Anything you want can be yours. That's a load of bullshit. Not anything you want should be or could be yours. That's a lie. Not anything. That doesn't even make any sense. Not every person on this planet is meant to be a neurosurgeon. And some are not even intelligent enough to pass the schooling, the medical schooling, and then the specialization to become that. That is the way of truth. Oh, way of truth, one of the ways of oneness. It's ridiculous. It's who am I here to become? That's what we change. What do you want in life? Get rid of that. Trash it. Put it in the toilet, take a crap on it, and flush. What do I want? That's coming from that little child who didn't get what he or she really needed when they needed it. And there's unhealed wounds there. What do I want? Get rid of the what do I want? Who am I meant to become? Because as a byproduct of the becoming of what my soul wants me to become, you'll get more than what you ever even thought you wanted. There's so much more for you when you just focus on the becoming of me. Can I truly align with what my soul is here to learn and to become in human form? And if I can become that, and I am a reflection of that, things come to you without you having to try. The universe just says, look at what you're doing. Beautiful. You are 100% in sync with me. Why? That's oneness consciousness. We are one, you see. We are in different forms, formless being up there, formlessness, energy, consciousness up there. But down here in human form on earth, we are manifested into a human person, right? It doesn't mean we're not one. So when we're really in flow with the universe and I'm doing my part that my soul wants me to do, that's the deal of coming down here and playing in this weird video game we're in. It's who am I meant to become? And as long as I am becoming that, the universe says, beautiful, you're in sync with me now. That's the way of surrender. We are in flow. We are in oneness. And therefore, here you go. Here's your next thing. And it could be your next challenge, your next achievement, your next beautiful opportunity, some magnificent thing handed on a silver platter. You're like, how the hell did this land in my lap? Oh, wait, how did it? Because I was responsible enough and I worked hard enough to become what I am here to become. That's why every person is on this planet, not what your job is, how much you make, or all that's a load of crap. Who are you here to become? Achieve that, and you'll get way more than what you ever even thought you wanted. That's the beauty of this work.
You will, right? And then
Yes.
like the attachment to it and like the relationship to it, whatever it is that you want, right? Yeah. And then like you have it. I know from my experience that it's not that it doesn't mean as much, because the things that like I have or like achieve or acquire or whatever is like awesome.
Yeah.
Like I still get psyched when I get in my car that I bought 6 years ago,
yeah.
and like
yeah.
wrap myself in the leather and like, but it's like, it's not, I don't have the same relationship to that I did when it was like all about, I have to get like a fancy car or a fancy house or something. It's like it's awesome. The house is awesome. And it's also like, it's like an inner separation. It's like, that's not who I am. It's not who I am.
It's not my identity.
I came the guy that, it's not my identity. I came the guy that created that. And like that, like that's the juice, is like, I became the man or the leader that created that. And it's like that part, the becoming that you're talking about is like, that's the gold bucket.
That's it. That's the golden buzzer right there. That I have become, and therefore I get to experience that car, that house, that whatever. I get to experience that in human form because I've become. So I've become, and then, oh, how fun. I get to experience that thing. And for someone else, they might not give two freaking shits about a car, could care less. They want a bike everywhere. That's okay. They want the cheapest thing. That doesn't mean anything. It's not fun for them to have a certain type of car, for example. And that is great. But what do they like? Oh, they like to go backpacking across Europe every year for 2 months out of every year. That's the thing that they want to have fun or want, so to speak. Well, when I've become who my soul is here to become, and then I just get to go experience that. See how we change our perspective to a divine one versus an egoic one. Yeah. High level of consciousness versus a low level of consciousness where I'm egoically attached to my material possessions, where I look like I'm, a success on the outside because I have a certain amount of all that crap. It's gross. It's vomitous. Get rid of it. It doesn't mean you can't have wonderful things. It means, as you said, Your relationship with them is very different. You are not egoically attached. You are simply this divine soul. I've become this. And as a byproduct of that, I got my beautiful house that I always, quote unquote, wanted. Language is limiting. And I just get to experience this house now. Oh, I get to go on vacations now because I haven't done that in 10 years. Oh, I get to have the dream car. I'm not attached to it. If it left tomorrow, I wouldn't give two shits. I got to experience it while I experienced it. Life is so much more fun. There's your emotional freedom.
I love that. There's the freedom right there. Exactly.
Freedom.
There's the emotional freedom, because it's not assigned or attached to anything or any person.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tell me, I am going back a little bit. So I'm like, okay. I'm holding everything that you just dropped. Is all beautiful. And then I'm thinking, like, connecting to the person who's listening, and they're like, okay, I get it. I resonate. Yes. And then you shared about your journey, right? Like when you left, let's say a job that wasn't aligned with your highest self. Right. And you're this transition that you made. I know people watching, there are some people in that position right now where they get it. They see what they're doing is not aligned. They know they have a higher purpose. They know there's a greater way to operate for them.
Yes.
Just like a high level, what were some of the considerations that you had to make that transition? Like, what were some of the bigger considerations or blocks that you had to overcome to fully step into this new this new chapter of your life?
Beautiful question. Resistance to what is. Resistance to what is. That's non-surrender. Resistance to what is. What am I here to learn? So here's the mistake we make in our lower levels of consciousness. This is allowing us now to expand when we integrate this and take this in. This doesn't align with my soul. That can be very true for a lot of people listening, because I love that you brought that up for some of the people who are listening and they're stuck and they're struggling and they hate their jobs or whatever. So I'm going to say a couple of things about that. What am I here to learn? Because you are there for a reason, and that is part of being in alignment with your soul. It might not be your final destination of what you're here to experience and achieve, but it doesn't mean you're not meant to be there. It means I am only here temporarily. Why? First way of oneness, the way of responsibility. I am here to learn something. I am here to become a different me, even if these experiences are quote unquote negative. To our souls, nothing's negative. All of it's learning and expansion, as long as we see it that way. So who am I here to become, even in this challenging situation? That's number one. If we look at it like that, guess what? As soon as you become that, I am the way of responsibility. I am the way of surrender. For example, I'm now in flow. I can flow out of this universe and say, oh, you learned what you were meant to learn. You may have needed that shitty job, even though you hate it, to gain the skills that you need to gain to go to the next thing. And if you don't gain those skills, if you were just given the next thing, because I'm trying to manifest, stop trying to manifest, people. Quit it already. You don't have to. You have to become. This is a new elevated way of being. Just become, learn what you're here to learn. And then you will just simply be shifted and moved out. And it doesn't mean you'll never take any action, but it will be inspired action. Now it's time, because I feel it. Now it is time for me to look for a new job or start my own business. You don't come from mind when it comes to that. You go inside and you become. Way of responsibility, the way of surrender. One of the ways of oneness is the way of loyalty. The way of loyalty. What does that mean? One example of this enlightened characteristic to become is, while I'm here at this job, because this job pays me money. It's paying me to be here, this job. And therefore, the way of loyalty, and I'm going to mention the way of honoring. These are all universal ways of oneness. The way of honoring means honor the job that puts food on my table. Honor the job that puts money into my bank account. And it means stop bitching and complaining that it isn't enough or it isn't this. Like, get out of the negativity, because you have to change your energetic frequency with your relationship with money. For example, I have a great relationship with money. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because if you're in a job that you hate and all you do is bitch about the money you don't make or whatever, you don't have a good relationship. A healthy,
Right.
divine relationship is, oh my gosh, look at the money flowing into my bank account. Instead of it's not enough, scarcity. Look at this coming in here. Thank you, job. I honor you for giving me at least this. And the way of loyalty I mentioned is, while I'm here at this job, even if I prefer to be elsewhere, it's okay to have a preference. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to love the job suddenly. The job
Yeah.
might suck. The job that I was trapped in was corrupt. It's poisonous. It keeps people unhealthy in so many ways, mentally, emotionally. I preferred not to be in it. But the way of loyalty meant that while I was there, I showed up 100%. No excuses. I did not show up as an immature, entitled child. I hate it, so I'm going to be a shitty employee. No, I'm going to be the best employee. I am going to use this as an opportunity to gain the skills, to learn, to expand, become better, more magnificent therapist. And I am never going to stop doing that. My patients deserve that. The way of selfless service, another way of oneness. So if we simply learn what the universal ways of oneness are, the 20 universal ways of oneness, and I work really hard at becoming every one of those ways, the universe will say, great, you're realizing that you were at this job for several reasons. You've matured, you've gained, you've become. Now we're going to shift you to your next experience. You don't have to stay stuck or trapped here any longer. You've matured and expanded enough spiritually, mentally, emotionally to move to a different experience.
Yeah, you don't fit anymore at that point. That's the way I hear
fit.
it. It's like I can relate to this on when I was in the military. I can relate because I didn't want to be there. Right. It was like this idiot decision that I got, sold by this recruiter, bought the dream of like, he's like, dude, you're gonna be, now he didn't say you're gonna be, but he painted a picture of being in Spain and throwing house parties, a tub full of beer and girls. And I was like, dude, sign me up. And then I land on a ship with a bunch of men and I was like, oh boy. But there's an honoring because I gave my word to be there. It's like, as much as I don't want to be here, I gave my word to be here. So I advanced in rank really quickly and just played the game. And then I can relate to this too when I ran my fitness company, because it's like at one point it was the dream, maybe like similar with occupational therapy. Like in the beginning, you were like, yes, this is going to be epic. And then I got there and it was awesome. And there became a point where like my vision expanded beyond what I could do, what I was doing inside of fitness. And it's like that expansion it's like happened first. And then it was like, I don't fit this container anymore. Let me go create a new container that is more aligned to like where I'm at right now. And I think that's part of there's a great book on this too. I'm sure you've read it and you teach this deeply. The War of Art.
Not
read that?
No,
oh my God, it's a good
I don't
book.
really read many people's stuff. I channel everything my own.
You do. Yeah, you do. The whole book is about resistance. That's the essence of the book.
Lovely.
It's just about resistance. And it's that resistance when you're in whatever you're in that you don't want to be in anymore, that's keeping you in it. Because how can you possibly manifest, if you will, a preference that you want if you haven't become the person that's going to hold that next container? It's not going to work. And if you quit the job because the job sucks and you're angry or whatever, your body, like, aren't you probably just going to go find another job that's the exact same scenario that looks shiny and beautiful on the surface? And then a year later, you find out the manager is the same manager, the coworkers is the same coworkers, the feeling is the same feeling. It's all the same because you created it from
the same person is the problem. I am the common denominator in every single experience and relationship I ever have in life. I'm the same. Everything else changes. I take me with me wherever I go. So if I do not heal, grow up, expand, mature, and become something more expansive, higher, more mature, more elevated, more highly conscious, I'm taking me with me anywhere and everywhere I go, which means I take my wounds, my projections, my mental, emotional programming, my lack of divine sight. I take that with me everywhere in every experience. And I am ignorant and naive enough to think and believe this new experience is going to be so different from the last. And doesn't it always end up being eerily similar? like the same thing
Same.
over and over and over. Why? Because I'm the same over and over and over. And that's what we have to wake up to. So when we feel stuck and trapped in certain scenarios, relationships, jobs, whatever it is, I'm the one who needs to grow and expand. And when I expand enough, then I simply will not be in this scenario anymore. I will easily move out of it. Why? I've expanded enough to do so. I don't have to force my way out and go somewhere else. And then I experience the same shit. Why? Because I'm the same.
I love that.
Yeah.
100%. And then you go to this, like, so here's my experience with it then is, okay, I've expanded, and it's like those things that I'll just say it for myself, that like I used to attract that weren't aligned. Like it automatically becomes that I repel those things,
Yes.
old habits or old ways of being or hanging with certain type of people. There's an inner repellent that happens on an expanded level that like those things, they're not even appealing. It's like there's it's like a chemical change, or it's an energetic change.
It's an energetic change
that pushes those things out. Even if they come in, it just pushes them right back out, or you push them right back out, or your energy pushes them right back out.
Yeah. Or you've gained the wisdom. It's one of the ways of oneness. I am the way of wisdom now. So I now gain with the way of wisdom, discernment. Oh, that's the old way. Look at the universe trying to challenge, look at life trying to challenge me a little bit and offer this thing to me. That's the old way I used to be. Those are the old choices I used to make. Ooh, here's the test of initiation. Am I going to fall for the old me and go backwards and learn a painful test? Right? Or am I the way of wisdom? I've gained more wisdom now, which means I've gained more discernment in my life experience. And I can see that for what it is. And no matter how enticing it may be, I'm not falling for that. No, thank you. The answer is no. I go this way instead. I look over there. I don't pay this any attention.
Let me ask you this. This is what just dropping in right now as we're talking about this. So like let's say inside of a marriage, or a relationship, long-term relationship. I see this often. I'm sure you do too, where like one partner starts to go through this growth phase, like this growth pattern that we're talking about, like really embodying this new way of being, becoming, and then their partner is not on board. Yes. And it's not that they don't want to be. I think there's often a lot of anger and judgment, like my partner doesn't want to do this with me. Right. But the reality is they don't know what you know. Yep. And then there starts to be this like separation. Yes. That starts to happen in this relationship. I get it's a loaded question and it's general because we don't have like two exact people that we're talking about specifically. But like generally speaking, in that sort of a scenario, what's your coaching for the person who's growing and expanding and they're like looking at their partner, like my partner just wants to eat cheeseburgers and watch and play video games?
Yeah. I love this question. I love it. Everybody sit down, buckle up, get comfortable, put your feet up. So I have custom tailored our relationship programs to address all of these things that people go through in a very practical way. So let's start here. Number one, what we learn in the coaching programs that I have created, that we offer at Masters of Self University. You first learn, what programs am I running? Our shadow self, the part of us that we're not too proud of, that we don't want people to know about, right? We don't want to know my dirty secrets. Our shadow self is made up of mental programs, emotional programs, behavioral programs, and our unhealed inner child wounds. Those 4 quadrants, our shadow self. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
It was rude. But just a side note to what you said about like, I don't want anyone to see my shadow self. Yeah. By the way, you have a sign over your head that's pointing to, this is my shadow self, right? Like we all see it. I don't mean you. I mean like, my shadow self, as much as I want to hide it, you see it. Yes. I don't see it the same way you see it. Everybody sees my own shit. So it's like, get over it, dude, because we all see it. Okay. Yes. I just want to say that because it's not a shadow. It's not shadow to everyone else as much as it's shadow to myself.
Yeah. Love that.
Sorry to interrupt. I just thought that was a fun.
I love it. Thank you. So with that shadow self that we think is so dark and secret and hidden, it's not. As Shawn said, like people can see your shit sometimes that you can't see, right? So our shadow self, we learn to begin, especially in relationships and our coaching programs, we teach, what programs am I running? Because here's the truth. My partner, who is stuck and lower and refusing to grow, running resistance program, for example, immaturity programs, whatever they are, that's going to trigger and activate my programs, isn't it? So if I haven't yet become the way of responsibility, the way of patience is the second way of oneness. The way of patience, if I can pause and take a breath and be a little more patient, that allows me then to become the next way, the way of surrender. Third way of oneness is the way of surrender. That means I'm zero resistance to what is. That is not easy to achieve. And that's only way of oneness number 3. And it is one of the hardest ones to achieve out of 20. We still got 17 more to go. But if I am in resistance to my partner being the way that he is or she is, if I'm in resistance to that, what does that say about me and where I need to heal and where I need to mature and where I need to grow? So it also is a reflection of, I'm playing a superiority program and I'm seeing you as inferior to me because you're not growing and you're not where I'm at. Oh, the way of equality is one of the ways of oneness. So I am actually showing up as inequality and promoting that in the world when I don't realize it. Ooh, that was in my blind spot, because I am judging this person for being in resistance and refusing to grow. Instead of realizing, if I become the way of responsibility, if I become the way of patience, the way of surrender, the way of compassion, the way of presence, et cetera, the way of equality, to what I'm choosing to become, then my relationship, no matter what, becomes more powerful, becomes healthier. I become more powerful. That other person who is in resistance, non-surrender, and all the other ways, of course, too, lacking of them, if my partner is still stuck down there, then he's going to start to get really uncomfortable. Not because his comfort zone was, we were codependent, we were powerless, we were weak before, we were in conflict, we were fighting, we were running all of our programs, showing up as little children in this relationship. And you no longer show up that way with me. That means the more challenging this relationship becomes, because it will become more challenging for a while. And that is the beauty of it, because in challenge is your opportunity to actually grow your power. You can't grow your power if you don't have challenge. It is impossible to grow your inner divine energetic power if you are not moving through a challenge. So you learn step by step, whether that person participates or not, you learn how to grow and expand and become more powerful. And here's the beauty. I'm going to emphasize, I'm being guided to say this one more time.
Yeah.
It will feel like it is 10 times harder for a while. And that is to give you the chance to grow your power for real. And not just, wear the stupid masks. I'm so spiritual. Get out of here. Can you move through this with grace? Can you become the ways of oneness in this relationship when your partner is refusing? That is how you become powerful for real, what it actually means to become powerful. And when you begin to achieve that, what happens is you cross a certain threshold at a certain point in time. And that threshold means, holy shit, I'm emotionally free. And I have zero egoic attachment anymore into how you show up. And what happens is you've really achieved, for example, the way of compassion. When I'm more powerful, it doesn't mean this person can be a jerk to me and walk all over me. No, I become powerful at setting my loving, healthy boundaries. I am so powerful. This over here has no effect. And guess what happens to that person who's left there fumbling around all on their own? No more codependency, no more weakness, no more anything. Only one of two things is going to happen. Number one, you are going to feel so free and so powerful. You say, thank you so much for this relation. This is what led me to become powerful. And I'm going to walk away. And you walk away with love and gratitude, even if your partner is shitty. You will have nothing but gratitude as the way of humility. It's beautiful. Or if you achieve a high enough level, that partner in your presence, in your energy, has no choice but to entrain. That means energetically, there's such a mismatch that the lower energies automatically come up higher in order to match yours. That's part of why I teach energetic science in all of our coaching programs. That energy over there, that human who's in resistance and bleh, has no choice but to change, literally. They have no choice anymore because we are energetic beings and this is how energy works. Entrainment starts to happen. But if you're only this much more elevated than your partner, the entrainment isn't the same. You're in the same 3 octaves is what I call them. So you have to go through the painful stuff, achieve a certain level, and then all of a sudden down here, it's like, oh my God, what do I do? And energetically, that person is quote unquote like forced to come up, and not because you want them to. You have no
Yeah.
attachment to whether they grow or not. No
Or
matter
control.
exactly, and you shouldn't have control. This is what freedom really is. So more often than not, those relationships actually evolve, and they're the most magnificent, beautiful, elevated relationships. And even when they part, they're actually the most beautiful, elevated relationships because they part with love and compassion and gratitude. No such thing as like resentment and hate and man, screw you. I wasted my year. I didn't waste my years. Look at what I've become because this relationship challenged me enough to become it. Wow, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, the power of that, I get in my circle, there's Thanksgiving for people that have transformed is
Yeah.
when you have these relationships that you're talking about where if you do both decide to go off in your own direction and you're both whole and complete in this loving, grateful state, and then there's children involved, Thanksgiving looks so unfamiliar to people that don't understand that. You mean, wait, your ex is going to be there?
Yeah.
Wait, you're married now and your ex is single and you're all going to be there around the table. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes. That's not I haven't been married or I have children, but I see that in my circles where it's these things that we would consider weird, but it's not weird. It's healed
elevated
and whole and complete.
Yes.
Yeah. It's elevated. It's elevated. And I see, I see the flow of how the laws of oneness, am I saying that right? Laws?
Universal ways of oneness, but they are the laws of the universe. Yes.
Yeah, the ways of oneness. I see the way they flow together because, there's in this example that we're talking about with the couple. It's okay. It's like my husband isn't elevating like I am. Great, resistance. So we get to work on resistance.
Yes.
Right. There's so much judgment there, and then
right.
What I see as well, like where selfless service, and you didn't say it this way either, but it's like the way I see possible anyway, is like, if you're speaking to somebody who's experiencing this right now, you also can take a stand for your partner, for your partner's growth. There's a way to take a stand. Like I had a girlfriend years ago who I met in a transformational container, and then I like left the container for a little bit when I started my fitness company, but like it didn't all stick yet, and I started getting off track.
Yeah.
I started getting off track. I started getting lazy, procrastinating.
Yep.
And I remember she was in the container still, and she became a coach. And I remember she interrupted me one night because I kept saying, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back and coach, become a coach. And I wasn't doing it. But and she, like, I'm so grateful. It was like 15 years ago. And she was a supporter. So it's not, this is like so far out of her comfort zone to do this to someone with a stronger personality.
Yeah.
And she just got sick of me bullshitting and lovingly, like in her heart, and stood in front of me physically, blocked me one night when I was coming out of the bedroom. And she just looked me in the eye and she put her hand on my heart right here. And she just said, Shawn, you've been saying that you're going to go back. And I don't even remember the words, but it cut through all my bullshit and with love, and was like, wake the fuck up.
Yeah.
And like that, her standing for me pulled me out of it. It's not her responsibility to do that, it's mine. But she did take a stand for me, cut through my bullshit. And because of her, I did go back and I never left. It's like at some level on that, I think there's so many opportunities to take a stand for your partner or your friends even. And it's not judgment. It can't look like that. It gets to be love.
Not judgment. It's the way of unconditional love. That's one of the ways of oneness.
You go. I love that.
The way of unconditional love. And I love that thank you so much for sharing that. That was such an amazing example. You don't know that you're loved until someone is willing to call you out on your bullshit.
Mm.
That's love. That is the way of unconditional love. Now, that cannot come with judgment, with criticism. I'm putting you down. You're inferior. You're a piece of shit. That is not the same thing. But you want to know what real love is, isn't somebody who's willing to tell you what you want to hear all the time. Period. End. Just isn't. Because, and it isn't offering unsolicited advice, but it is, hey, time out. Because you offer this to me all the time, and I'm going to call you out on your bullshit right now. That actually comes from the way of unconditional love. That comes from somebody who wants to see you grow, succeed, become more successful, become healthier mentally, emotionally, whatever. They want to see you be better for you. And this brings one thing I want to mention.
Yeah.
When people say like, I want to stop screwing up, I want to heal, for him or for her, I always tell people, cut that shit out. You will fail. That isn't even achievable. Don't you dare do that crap for any human being. You do
same
it for
with your
yourself.
children, right?
Exactly.
You mean,
I want to do it for my children. How dare you?
Yeah.
I always say,
agree.
how dare you want to be better for someone else? Of course, they get very confused when I challenge them that way. And it's like, how dare you? Because that's superficial and it won't stick. Never when you do, I want to be better or heal for them. That is a load of crap. Why? Because what's in your blind spot, the program you're running is, I'm not worthy enough to do it and achieve it for me.
For me, yeah.
If I do not put myself first, this isn't in a selfish way. This is actually a way of selfless service. This is the way of loyalty. This is the way of unconditional love. This is the way of honoring. This is the way of compassion. This is the way of harmlessness and gentleness for myself, that I actually want to heal and become whole and become so powerful. As a natural byproduct, I'm a magnificent human now that any human who comes around me gets to experience the beauty and the power and the divinity that I am. How amazing is that? Just by being who you are, by being what you've become, you are now a better husband or a better wife or a better partner. You're now a better parent. You're better at your job. You're better for your clients. That's selfless service. Those are the ways of one. That's why becoming the ways of one. You want to heal suffering on the planet, become the ways of oneness. Period. End. It's that simple.
Yeah, I freaking 100. We're on the same page about that. I often look at I was looking at some of the crazy stuff that's happening in the world right now. And you could take any, pick one. There's a million. There's a million. And one of the things I did, I started talking about, and I don't know if everybody loves this or not, but who cares? Is like all this gun violence. There's all this gun violence with these kids, these kids going and shooting up these students, whatever. It's disgusting. It's horrible. Yes. All of that. Right. And I think the thing that we miss from my perspective, the question I ask when I see this happening is, how is that kid actually a reflection of me? Exactly. And I don't mean it like I'm going to go do and act like that. I just mean, maybe the anger or the hurt or the blame or whatever that want to take people down. It's powerlessness. Like if we, the power, exactly. The powerlessness. The powerlessness is like, instead of it doesn't solve the problem to talk about guns or to talk about mental health or with them. What I mean is them, look what they're doing. This this separation of them. Look what they're doing. Or even look what pick your politician, look what they're doing. And it's yes. And in that come from, I'm positioning myself they're different from me. Yes. And it's what if I asked, how is this actually happening inside of me? Where am I being out of integrity? If you think politicians out of integrity, okay, where am I out of integrity? Right. Where am I not being honest, or where am I being manipulative? And it's I don't want to, it's makes me cringe to ask that. But if I ask that, I dissolves the energy. I don't have energy on Biden now or whatever, or Trump, pick your guy. Right. It's okay, I can see it in myself and I can dissolve it here. And when I dissolve it here, what I notice, my energy drops, but then the conversations I have with people changed. Yes. I don't have as many of those conversations about look at the president, look at the past president. It's I'm not attracting that anymore. And because of it's the responsible come from. and compassion, and it's all of it. It's all flowing into what
You
you're,
got it.
yeah.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing to bring up about that, or to piggyback off of, is that we are so equipped to trying to solve problems from surface level or at the behavioral level. Behaviors are symptoms, period, end. They are symptoms of a deeper problem. How I am showing up behaviorally. That's why in our coaching programs, you learn to see yourself from a divine perspective, right? From the way of truth, that what programs am I running? Am I lying? Am I a manipulator? Am I judging? And do I lack equality? Do I lack integrity? Do I lack whatever ways, right? Behaviorally, you will show up because of the programs you're running. No longer do we get to say, this is just who I am. That's a load of crap. No, it isn't. They're just the programs you're running. That's not the truth of who you are, no matter how shitty you might be showing up. Those are just behavioral programs. If you try to change behavioral programs, you are never, ever, ever getting to the root, the wound. What is the core cause of that behavior? The behavior is a symptom of an unhealed wound or a program running. That's it. It's all energy. When we see it like that, it's not quite as shameful to say, ooh, Jesus, I'm so shitty. This shitty program, this sucks. Look at this wound that I have. Okay, let's just go into that wound now that we see it, own it. And let's learn to be the way of unconditional love with it. Let's learn to energetically transform it. That can't transform. That cannot transform on an energetic level if you do not have a higher, more powerful vibrational frequency to transform that energy. Energy never dies. We have to learn the science of energetics to go in and actually transform the energy. Coping mechanism, tools, spiritual, I don't care what you use, you feel better momentarily because you're moving energy. You are not transforming energy. That's the difference. So the whole gun violence thing is an example. We waste our time, fighting over whether we should or shouldn't have gun control. It's the dumbest fight ever. That's not the problem.
I agree.
The laws are not the problem. And no, I mean, I don't know why any average person needs to have a goddamn AK, a freaking bazooka, for Christ's sake, in their possession. But that's still beside the point.
Yeah.
That isn't the problem, because if you are healed and whole, you don't use your gun in a psychotic way, sociopathic way, to shoot up a school or a concert or a freaking parade. You just literally are not the being who is even capable of doing that. So we have to get to the root of these things and transform the energies. Energy never dies. We are energies. Our mental programs, our thoughts are energies. Our emotions are energies. And we learn to try to force our mind to think differently. That is such an exhaustive waste of time, and it can take years and decades and a lifetime. Learn what programs are running and learn the process to become more powerful in your overall energy, to then go into a wound or a program and just simply alchemize it. And when you master this work, you can alchemize something in a matter of minutes just by learning the process that we teach at Masters of Self University. You have to be willing to learn to work with energy, though, and what that actually means. But you learn that, you are literally healing all of the core problems that create really shitty behaviors from myself, from others in the world.
100%. I want to ask this from like an energy, because my mind wants to ask from a mind question.
Right.
But like we're talking about big picture, ultimately, I think is like transforming the planet,
Yes.
transforming humanity. Like, yes, my own life, of course, and also the world I live in is a question I'm in and part of my vision.
Yeah.
What's your, I know you channel, what's your take on if there's 8 billion of us, and if we all embrace this dialogue that we're in, like, okay, I'm gonna transform myself, I'm gonna be a stand for the change that I want to see.
Yes.
The way I understand it is there's a ratio of us.
Yes.
A certain ratio of that 8 billion. Like if a certain ratio or number transforms and becomes whole and complete,
yes,
raised vibration, it's going to automatically transform the rest. I think that's possible. There's like I think the 100th monkey effect was like the first, like the term I've heard for that. Maybe there's another term that I don't know, but What's your take on that? Like, what's your take on that, first of all? And if you agree with that, maybe you don't, but if you did, then what would you see like the ratio being?
So I love that. What a great question. So when you really truly take the time to learn and educate on these deep spiritual teachings, then you are learning, like I've mentioned several times, energetic science. Science is not separate from spirituality, right? It just isn't. That's what we have to awaken to, number one. But to answer your question is, if you really understand science / spirituality, because it really is the same thing, you really go into these deeper levels of understanding this stuff, then what you understand is, as I change authentically, when I elevate for real and I become not what I like to think I am in the world, what I actually am, how am I actually showing up in the world versus how I like to think I show up in the world? Because those are not the same thing.
Not the same.
They are not the same. You know, perspective means nothing. What's your perspective? What's my truth? Throw that shit away and simply become. So the 20 universal ways of oneness are being offered to this planet at this time because we have a percentage of people on this planet who can actually achieve the becoming of them. That's the most exciting, beautiful thing we could say, right? So there is now enough people on this planet who are trying to change. They're trying to heal. They're trying to elevate. They are doing it to varying degrees. And because so many of them are, here come the 20 universal ways of oneness. I've waited a long time to be able to offer it for when's the time, when is the divine timing, right? I had to really learn the way of patience when it came to this. So the beautiful thing is there are enough people on the planet to make this massive shift that you were asking about, but the massive shift is not passive. And you cannot only be a little more elevated today than you were a couple of years ago. That isn't good enough. We are in way too much chaos and crisis and destruction and darkness for that to be the case. We have to actually achieve, not put on social media, you're a fucking spiritual warrior. Get rid of that crap. You have to actually achieve what it means to move through all the tests of initiation and become the spiritual warrior that has achieved such a high level of enlightenment, of consciousness. The 20 universal ways of oneness that people can read about, start to learn about. If you become the ways of oneness, literally, and even become mostly the ways, then what happens is what I've mentioned earlier with the relationship example. There then are so many of us in unity, becoming oneness with each other. Our elevated vibration as a collective is actually very high. Not what we think is high. Oh, I'm high. I'm fifth dimensional. Stop it. No, you're not, or the world would be changed already. That's the way of truth. That is the way of truth. Enough of us have to be so goddamn elevated and understand what that actually means and become it on an energetic level. Then the rest of humanity, only one of two things happens. They fade away and burn out in whatever ways they're going to do it. Or they are forced to elevate themselves. Systems get dismantled, people get fired. So many things happen. Souls leave the planet in whatever ways they leave the planet. And the rest of them that are kicking and screaming still and in resistance, but they have no choice but energetic entrainment happens. They will rise up because we are so elevated up here, way up there, that the other energies on this planet, the other beings on this planet have no choice but to rise up too. As I rise, you rise, we all rise together. That's where that comes into play. And that is a saying from Oneness Consciousness. As I rise, you rise, we all rise together. So if I'm all the way up here at the top and I take you with me under my wing and I keep teaching and mentoring and guiding and elevating and teaching you how to become the ways of oneness, you then naturally transfer that into everything that you do to everybody else. And there's your ripple effect. As I rise, you rise, we all rise together. And that means the less conscious people on the planet literally have no choice. Their energies have to rise up too, or they are going to be squeezed so tightly that they will explode, and they will only explode in awakening, or health-wise, they will no longer be on this planet.
Yeah, fucking love it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening right now. Okay, yeah. And maybe this question isn't even important, but I just want to know, is there a ratio? Like, is there a ratio of that, like awakened souls versus, is there, or does that not even matter to you in your
Well,
perspective?
I thank you for asking it. So it is not
Yeah.
possible to give an accurate, simple answer to that. Yes, there is an answer to it. Let me say that there is, but the ratio depends on varying levels of consciousness. It is such an extraordinary variable that changes all the time, and it's
I
hard
see.
to conceptualize because varying levels, you're not just a certain level of consciousness, because you may be the first several ways of oneness, but the other ways of oneness that are the highest, most elevated characteristics of oneness consciousness, the way of humility, the way of integrity, the way of forgiveness, purity, wisdom, harmony, for example, are so high, you may be nowhere near them. So your vibrational frequency, although extraordinarily high compared to others, for example, isn't high enough to pull people up enough. So some people are, the percentage of people actually changes, if this makes sense. It's hard for a lot
Makes
of people to
sense.
conceptualize, but it
I hear like
changes.
frequent, it's more like overall frequency.
Frequency, that's exactly what it is. It's
Okay.
overall
Yeah, that's a great.
frequency. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. So people are at all different frequencies. The more we raise our frequencies, we will reach a certain frequency as a collective that, yes, will cross the threshold. But to get to those frequencies is such a variable that you can't even quantify. You can't even quantify. I can tell you, and do not take this literally, anybody listening, if you have at least, say, a third of the population that are the highest of the high, and I mean they have achieved all the ways of oneness, the rest of the planet has no choice. They would fly up and just be raised. But for a third of 8 billion people to actually become fully every way of oneness is very unlikely to achieve in this lifetime. So that's where you get all the different frequencies creating a collective frequency where we'll still achieve it, but we would need way more people to achieve a certain level to cross that threshold.
Yeah, I love that. That's brilliant. Brilliant the way that you shared that. Rachel, this was awesome. This was an awesome conversation. I want to
Thank
honor your
you.
time. I know you have a commitment coming up. Otherwise, we'd just keep rapping. So I
Yeah,
want to declare this publicly. I want to do this again. I'd like to do a part 2 with you at some point for a future event. So I'm just declaring that.
would love
And
that.
yeah, and I know that the audience that's watching right now get it, and I want them to also be able to connect with you personally. And so the way that we do that on the show is you offer a free gift, which you're offering, and then
Yes.
those people can grab that, and then
Yes.
not only do they get that gift, but they get the gift of being in your world after that, if they choose to be. So I'll link that when I send this out. Can you just talk about what that gift is?
Yeah. So I want to mention that when I teach and offer the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness, I do have a book on Amazon that you can purchase, Mason's Way, the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness. And, but if you're not sure and you just want to gain some insight and you want some exposure to that first and really explore it a little more, because you've heard us talk about it so much today, what I'm going to offer is the Universal Ways of Oneness Introductory Guidebook for you. I'm going to offer that for free. So it'll give you at least an introduction of all 20 ways of oneness. You can experience them, you can explore them. You can also then join our Discord group that I offer through my corporation, through Masters of Self University. And you can jump on there and ask questions and start a dialogue of what these ways are. What does it mean? How have they changed your lives for people who are part of this community? And from there, you can make the choice if you want to experience it any further and moving forward with, making a purchase of anything. But before that, just learn a little bit about each way of oneness, get exposure to them. And that's my gift. I'm going to give you those 20 ways so that you can experience them a little bit and see if it's something that feels good to you to move forward with on any level.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I just want to say this to the audience. Like, if you're here, you've heard the message, you're clearly resonating. Before you jump into the next thing and next act, go grab that and jump in Rachel's world. I just want to say it doesn't matter at all that I say this. I get that, but I fully endorse, like, you are the real deal, doing great work in the world. I totally resonate with your work, the ways of oneness. And for anybody considering, jump in the world, into Rachel's world, do it. Jump in, because you're the real deal. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, absolutely. Grateful for this conversation.
Me too.
Yeah. And I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here with me. I loved sharing this space with you and all of the listeners. So thank you for having me. And I would love to come back and talk more with you in the future.
All right. That sounds great. We'll make it happen. Bye-bye, everybody at home. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.